burnout.
Yeah, burnout's an interesting one for me. It can be, for me, I put it on myself. And I know for you, we both try and work as hard as we can. We take on tasks. We always say yes. And that can lead to burning ourselves out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we made some notes on this, that burnout can either be sort of an external or an internal kind of force. But mainly, I think both of us agree that, you know, that internal pressure that we put on ourselves is the thing that drives us most towards burnout.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it? You always want to be pushing yourself and striving, but sometimes you push and strive too much that you burn yourself out and actually revert and you're less productive. Yeah,
absolutely. And look, for me, I've always been a people pleaser. I've always wanted to make sure that the people around me are happy, that are enjoying the input that I'm giving to things. And that can be great sometimes, you know, like when times are good and, you know, you're giving that little bit extra, it brings things along. But then I think you just got to be careful not to over deliver and take too much of yourself away. So.
For sure. And then I guess on the other side of the coin is those external motivators, being whether it's your boss, your job, your wife, your family, your kids, social requirements, all those other things that are just expectations of you that also lead to burnout, where at times you almost need to say no and put up those positive boundaries and spread yourself a bit of time for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know it's a bit of a cliche, and I'm sure everyone's heard it 1,000 times, but you know, there's that mentality of you've got to fill up your own cup, right? You know, and put your own, you know, face mask on or life jacket on first, whatever you want to call it. But it's true, you know, there's it's almost like there's creep. You don't realize until it gets too late sometimes that, hey, hold on a minute, I'm probably not as vital or showing up in the world as much as with the energy that I want to. So you've got to keep checking yourself in on a regular basis and making sure that, you know, you're not overdoing it.
And you remind me, as you say, creep. For the veterans out there, I know that they would have heard the terminology mission creep.
Yeah.
And again, it provides an external pressure source that the boss will want something done at 2:00. It'll go down to the next line manager and they'll say, all right, well, you got to be there at 1:30.
Right.
It'll go down to your team manager and they'll say, be there at 1:00. All these time pressures continue for what? For no real reason.
How do you deal with that? I mean, there's got to be something that you put in place to say, do we actually really need to hit that milestone?
I think the important thing with that is each level of manager needs to understand the true intent. And if the intent is that it's going to begin at that 2:00 or 1400, like I mentioned, then that's your hard timing.
Yeah.
To be there and prepare, it's always good. If you're not 5 minutes early, you're 5 minutes late. So maybe a little bit of time to buy yourself for any emergency that might arise. But an hour or 2 hours earlier, that's when you get mission creep, and that's going to be an external pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to circle back to something that you mentioned earlier about this kind of like setting up boundaries. And it's something that I've only ever really got better at in my 40s. I'm giving away my age a little bit now. But I think in my 30s, especially with my career and wanting to develop and grow, I'd say yes to everything. You know, I'd be getting on planes at silly times in the morning. I'd be working through and then going out for dinner at night. And you don't realize the toll that takes on you until it takes a toll on you.
Yeah.
You know, and I think sometimes you have to, you know, it could come across as selfish, but actually in reality, you're doing it not just for you, but it's the preservation of the mission, the preservation of the project. Because if you're down and out, you're no good to anybody.
Yeah, and the preservation of yourself as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and I think with that sort of idea, particularly in your early 20s, you're sort of budding into a career, you may not have young families, you may not have a lot of other requirements and things that need your time as we get older. Like you said, as we get to our 40s, you've got young families, you've got more of a higher level work. You may have a group of workers and colleagues below you that you need to manage and take into consideration. And you've got your boss who you owe time to and you owe KPIs to as well. So my opinion is in those younger years, say yes, be sort of a people pleaser to a degree.
Yeah.
Because you have to build your experience, build your reputation, grow, and get to the point where you're like, okay, I've reached my boundaries. Now I know when to say yes and what I need to say no to. It's kind of a learning scale.
Yeah. Look, I that really resonates for me. You know, I think when you don't have those responsibilities, it's great. Go for it. Get involved in projects that you wouldn't normally do. Learn as much as you possibly can, because you're downloading something onto your hard drive that you would never have really done before. So take yourself out of your comfort zone, but to avoid burnout, just be a little bit more measured in the way that you give yourself out as you get that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I think for now that probably covers burnout.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Tune in next time when we'll be covering some more hot topics on our Take Me Higher chats.